first place for the open longsword, Federico Dall'Olio.
Federico Dall'Olio of Italia, winning first place, the new champion of swordfish, well-earned.
And Federico receives
the most coveted gold medal in Hema.
The coveted black feather.
Federico Dall'Olio, you are the first Italian to have reached the longsword finals in swordfish. You're also the winner. You've got to tell us how you feel.
Well, I dreamed it, and I trained for it, and now I'm living it, so I'm happy. How can I say?
Greetings, fencers! I am Orlando, and I welcome you once again to Nightly Arts. Today we have the pleasure and privilege of meeting Federico Dall'Olio, my dear friend and one of the most successful athletes and fencers in the European and international scene. Now, I've got total respect for both the man and the fencer, and Federico's been winning ever since his debut in Hema. He's got something to him. Training, his spirit, I don't know, total attitude made him what I call an authentic champion. And today we have the privilege of having an exclusive interview with him so we can ask him more closely what he thinks about Hema and what is his point of view on the martial art. Well, he asked me to actually do this in the open. Right now he's in France, so Europe, the weather is a little bit more forgiving. But since we're in Canada, I'm gonna try to please him, but I'm gonna need probably an external help. And let's use some magic here to just accommodate him. So let's get prepared. And let's go meet him. Hi Federico, it's a pleasure to have you as a guest here on Nightly Arts. I really appreciate you getting some of your time off your training to be able to answer a couple of questions. Right now, you're one of the most popular fencers or active fighters in the Hema community for both your attitude and your results. You've become famous for, your humbleness and all your great victories. And you've achieved many satisfactions, one of which was winning for the first time as an Italian the gold medal for longsword in Swordfish 2016. But you've achieved many more results. Where did you first hear about Hema? When did you start practicing, and in which club, if you actually started with a club, did you start with?
I started in 2013 when I was in Scotland. I was living in Scotland in this moment of my life, and I was actually looking for a reenactment group, and I looked for that and I didn't see any. So I said, okay, there is a fencing school, historical fencing school. It's not what I wanted, but I would go there anyway to do something, and it was the best choice after all.
So, how long did you train before you started taking part in events? And also, how long do you think a beginner should train before he would start, taking part in tournaments?
I took part the first time in a tournament in 2014. And it was a small tournament. I get lucky and I won. But considering your second question, when someone is ready to compete in a tournament, actually this is quite personal. I think there is objective parameters, and of course a fencer should be trained and ready to face a tournament, even a beginner one. But actually I would say it's something that the teacher and the fencer itself they should talk about it and decide together when the fencer could be ready.
Are you able to count more or less how many podiums and medals you've collected over the years?
Actually, I don't know. I never kept record of that. I think it would be around 35, 40 medals and awards between podium and technical awards, I guess.
And now, a hot topic. What do you think about tournaments? Do you think they're an accurate method of testing fencer skills? And especially, why?
Well, very quick answer, yes, I believe tournaments are very important. And I believe tournaments are much more important now than what it would be like in 10 years, 20, 30 years in historical fencing. Because today, it's a very useful tool to understand if what we are studying, it's working or not. In 10 years, like when Hema will be more, let's say, even more professional, if you want to say like that, it would be just a tool for medals and for the majesty of the schools. But today, at least for me, if I can do something in tournament, something I studied, and this is my interpretation of the technique, or like even the mindset, even the feelings, it means that if it works in tournament, for me, this is the closest thing that could get to reality. I think tournaments are actually more important today that will be in the future, because it's a very important tool that we have today, not only to test the skills, but also to test the manuscript themselves. We are still living in a moment where we are discovering manuscripts and like ancient ways of fighting, and my opinion is there is no better way than a tournament if to see if my interpretation of this technique it works or not. And also the situation under stress of a tournament is the most important thing to really shape the personality of a fencer and also an athlete as well. So yeah, I like tournaments. You know, to be honest, I felt every kind of emotions since when I started competing. From panic, first period, nausea, and excitement, even passivity. I was tournaments where I didn't care to keep going, to winning, losing. But I have to say something. For me, the ideal mindset or the ideal thought is when I don't think to anything. I just can make the void inside myself and just do what I know to do and discover after if I did something and if I did it well. And this is when I can do my best in competition.
What do you think about the fact that some are thinking about introducing weight classes? Are you in favor of that, and why?
To be honest, I don't see it as a big problem. I mean, all depends from the rule set. If the rule set, of course, is more focused on grappling, yeah, of course, like people would try to go more in grappling and use their physical strength. But as much as in fencing, it doesn't really matter the weight, I guess. At least for now, but still, if you make a rule set about continuous fighting, of course, 100 kilograms will be most of the time, not always, but most of the time better than 50 kilograms in a close fight and grappling.
Are you only strictly a fighter, or are you also a teacher?
Actually, I started teaching in my school in Sala d'Arme dell'Appeso and in my other school, Sala d'Arme delle Due Maestà. After very few time, I was doing Hema. I don't consider myself as a teacher. We were more a study group, and let's say I was leading mainly the lessons. Now, since I moved in Paris, I got back only at my original idea of learner. I really enjoy having a maître d'armes and learning every day by him. But let's say I'm, yes, continuously sharing what I know and what I think is right, especially with few people. I like to have few people, let's say, yes, teaching and sharing my ideas. And even when I travel doing workshops, I like to also share and make a confrontation between my ideas and other methods.
Are you more of a theorist or a practitioner? And is theory important?
I actually asked this question many times, and to be honest, I reached the conclusion that there is no real difference between them, because the theory, it works only if it's put in practice, and the practice it works only if supported by a good theories. So I don't see very much difference between them, to be honest. I will study always manuscripts, but I will always try to put them in a real practice.
Are there some fencers out there that inspired you?
Actually, there is many sportsmen, many martial artists, many actors, many men that inspired me about fencing and everything. I would say boxer also, I would say actors again. But if I would have to choose someone alive, I would say I have a special place for my fellows in my school. Francesco Viola, Davide Morleo, Paolo Tirelli, they really inspired me in many ways. Not only with a sword in the hand in the piste, but also in life. I would say that.
You've taken part in events all over the world. Is there a place that took a special place in your heart? And why?
There are many tournaments I felt really well and welcomed and with a good energy. But if I have to choose one, maybe I would say MacLeod in Greece. Not only for the tournament itself, but it was a very nice environment and a very nice people, and the energy there was, for me, for just a matter of situation, very special. And also just my idea to fight in Greece, a country that I love and a country that gave so much to the martial arts and history to all the Western world, it was something special for me. So I would say Greece.
I also know that you've got a passion for Olympic fencing, saber if I'm correct. Now, do you think that practicing Olympic fencing is useful? And if yes, why?
Yes, I was doing saber for a bit more than 1 year, 2 years when I was a kid. But now I'm enjoying much more épée, and I think épée is, let's say, much more realistic weapon and much more useful for the rule sets in Hema today and my idea of ideal rule set. About the question of if it's useful or not, yeah, of course. Every martial sport is useful, and Olympic fencing is, let's say, what closest we have to the evolution of what we are studying as historical fencing. So I think it can teach very nice body mechanics if you can put them in practice in the longsword or whatever weapon you can use. I would advise Olympic fencing anyway, because after all, it's fun.
When I had the privilege to come and train with you guys in Italy in 2016, you've been an incredible host and gentleman. I have never ever experienced such kindness in my whole life. You guys were just so great. And I will never, be able to thank you enough. Have you ever experienced such a warming welcome when you traveled all over the world? Have you been hosted in the same manner? And have you ever, received the same treatment outside of the environment, the Hema environment?
Well, first of all, thanks for the compliment, and I take it as a personal compliment. But yeah, to answer the question, yes, I've been hosted many times, and I hosted people many times in my house, and I try to make them feel comfortable. But I think this is important also in Hema today, because my idea is that we are living a golden age of Hema, where we are still like everybody's friend. We are still discovering many ways of training, many ways of fighting, and many ways of interpretations about the manuscript. So the confrontation now is something that is due to the next generations of fencers. And we have to do our best not to win medals or focus on ourselves, but to work together and make connections for the years to come.
I also remember one thing that inspired me particularly. When you actually hosted me and I had the privilege of staying at your place, I remember seeing like an inspirational wall with all quotes from all martial cultures from all over the world. And, you know, it was very, very, very inspiring. And, you know, I started thinking like, if this table or if this wall is over his bed, that's the first thing this guy sees in the morning and the last that he actually sees before he goes to bed. So I thought to myself, this guy is not just a warrior when he steps in the arena, but he actually wakes up as a warrior and goes to sleep as a warrior. Do you agree with this statement?
Well, definitely I don't go bed as a warrior. But beside that, beside jokes, it's not up to me to say if I'm a warrior or not. Yeah, of course, like I try to face life in the best way. Like, I mean, fencing is a very important part of my life, and I try to face opponents, I try to study, I try to have relationships between fencers and friends as much as I can, and this helps me also in the real life. If I have to say something, fencing gives me more about life than fencing itself.
Where do you see the Hema community 10 years from now? And why do you think that?
Well, this is a very hard question. Of course, it's hard to me to say what will be in 10 years in Hema. If I have to choose something, I would say I would like to see, and maybe it's gonna happen, to see technology supporting more Hema, either in a study about manuscript, but also in a system of training and also tournaments as well. I think technology can really help tournaments and even connections between clubs. So if I wish something to Hema, it's more technology involved.
So where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Well, actually, every time someone asks me this question, it reminds me the episode of Simpson when Homer said to Marge, actually, I didn't expect to live so long. But jokes beside, if I have to choose, I would say I hope to still find in 10 years the passion and love about fencing that I feel today, and the satisfaction I have to meet people and the relationships between other Hemaists all around the world. That's the only thing I can say.
Well, Federico, thank you very, very, very much for the time you've dedicated us today. Your answers were actually pretty inspiring. We're gonna have something to think about in the following days, as I'm sure many of our viewers will as well. Thank you again e ci vediamo fra qualche mese adesso che scendo, Ciao Federico, grazie ancora. So, back to us. Today we had the real privilege of hearing some opinions of one of the authorities in the field. There is nothing to question about success. You are good, you go forward. You're not, excuses come up. Federico is for sure one of the best fencers. Don't trust my word for it. Go watch his fights. Go watch his elegance, his movement, his speed, his power, his precision, his technique. I mean, you don't get to certain levels if you're not worth. And he is one of the most worthy fencers out there today that I had the privilege to interact with. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, which was more an introspective in one of the champions' points of views. We will probably have more interviews from various fencers all over the world. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and alla pugna! Thank you for being with us up until now. So if you've liked what you've seen so far and you want to know more, please like, subscribe, and if you think that there's other friends of yours or people you know that might like this, please talk about us. Let people know that we exist. In the case you didn't like it, don't put dislikes, don't comment negatively, don't tell anybody, just mind your own business, and thank you!